Hey folks, Andy Patton here. The Zags put together one of the most efficient shooting nights of the entire season in a rout of BYU on Thursday evening. We're going to recap all of the fun from the kennel before we do a quick preview of Santa Clara ahead of this weekend, all right here on the Locked On Zags podcast. Don't go away.
You are Locked On Zags, your daily podcast on the Gonzaga Bulldogs. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
What is going on, y'all? Welcome to the Locked On Zags podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. I'm your host and longtime Gonzaga podcaster, Andy Patton, here to take you through another season of Gonzaga hoops. Today's episode is brought to you by Netsuite. Netsuite is the #1 cloud financial system to power your growth. Head to netsuite.com/lockedonncaa for special end-of-the-year financing on the #1 financial system for growing businesses. All right, that was fun, folks. If you missed out on the Gonzaga BYU game on Thursday evening, ESPN, it was a doozy. BYU got off to a pretty good start. They went up 7-0, and then it was just all Zags after that. 10-3 run or 10-0 run right after that. BYU tied it up, and then the Zags just went rolling. They ended up scoring 110 points. They finished the game shooting 69.4% from the field. I want to be clear, that is lower than what they were shooting for the vast majority of the game. As we've come accustomed to, the Zags brought in a lot of their walk-ons at the end of the game, and there were a couple more missed shots than usual, brought them down below 70%. They were shooting over 72% from the field for most of the game. That is about 3/4 of their field goal attempts were going in throughout this game. It was a remarkable offensive performance, perhaps the best offensive performance I've ever seen from this Gonzaga team. I'd be hard-pressed to find any other games that are more impressive than this. In fact, according to Eric Haslam and the Haslametrics statistics, this is the highest field goal percentage in a Division I versus Division I game this season. Now, some people are going to see, hey, Gonzaga had the best, most efficient scoring day of the season. Boo-hoo, they're in the WCC. Give us that whole argument. But here's the deal. Not only is the WCC better, which we're going to continue to say on this podcast throughout the season, but this is against BYU. BYU coming into this game, according to KenPom, had the 18th best defense in the country. This was a top 20 defense in the nation. And Gonzaga shot 72% for 90% of this game before falling down to just under 70% from the field on the game. It was an extraordinary performance. It was the most points BYU has given up under Mark Pope. Just an incredible, incredible offensive night. The Zags were good defensively as well. They were not great defensively. They gave up 84 points, but when you score as many points as Gonzaga did, as efficiently as Gonzaga did, it's hard to turn around and also hold a good offensive team to below 70 points. You just can't expect that in the same game. I don't think 84 points is anything to be concerned about. I don't think Gonzaga's defense was particularly bad. BYU has a good offensive team. They showed up and played pretty well offensively throughout this game, but the Gonzaga was just that good. Most of this came from 4 guys, 4 players. To be clear, basically everybody on Gonzaga's roster played well in this game. You don't score 110 points against a top 20 defense unless everybody's firing on all cylinders, and that included Mark Few's son, Joe Few, who scored his first point on a free throw at the very, very end of the game. Would be an incredible moment for the Few family, I have to imagine, to see Joe get in the scorer's column for this game. But the 4 guys who really did most of the damage for Gonzaga were Drew Timme, Chet Holmgren, Andrew Nembhard, and Julian Strawther. We're going to talk a little bit more about Chet and Drew in the second segment, but I want to take this moment here to really highlight Andrew Nembhard's performance. He has been, perhaps more than anybody else on this roster, the most polarizing player day in and day out. There are games when he looks like the best, or at least one of the best point guards in the country. UCLA is a prime example. He was extraordinary in that game. He also played very well against Texas Tech. He has proven that he can be one of the best players in the country. But there have also been games, Tarleton State, Duke, Alabama stand out, where he has really struggled. He's gotten sped up. He's turned the ball over. He hasn't shot it particularly well. And so kind of which Nembhard shows up on which day really has a big impact on this Gonzaga team. And today he was cooking. He had 22 points. He had 12 assists, his first double-double in a Gonzaga uniform. He, for a huge chunk of this game, he had more assists than BYU. The entire BYU, in fact, he finished with more assists than BYU. BYU had 11 assists on the day. Again, BYU scored 84 points. They scored 84 points with just 11 assists. Gonzaga scored 110 points with 28 assists, and 12 of them came from Andrew Nembhard. Just an extraordinary game from Nembhard. He did it from the outside. He hit 4 threes in this game. Something that I have talked about at length on this podcast is his struggles from beyond the arc. He has proven me wrong. I am happy about that. He looks like a legitimate shooter. I'm sure he'll still have stretches where he struggles. That is okay. It happens. Right now, he looks very confident shooting the rock, and why wouldn't he be? 4 for 6 from downtown, 2 for 2 from the free throw line, 8 for 13 overall in the game for Nembhard. Just an extraordinary performance from him. And we've known this about him. We knew this about him at Florida. We knew this about him last year. His ability to navigate the pick and roll is better than anybody I've ever seen at this. He is exceptional. He comes off the screen. He knows when to make the pass. He knows when not to make the pass. There was a play earlier in this game where he separated away, took a little mid-range jump shot, and the fluidity that he moves with, the ability to recognize that on a dime and make the correct decision and knock down the shot. It is unlike almost any other player that I have ever seen at this level. It makes him and Gonzaga so unbelievably difficult to guard. I stand by him being one of, if not the best point guard in the NCAA, certainly the best at navigating the pick and roll. He's a streaky player. We've seen what happens when he's off, and he looks like far from the best point guard in the NCAA, and those games happen. But for the most part, by and large, you're not going to find a better point guard to put on your roster than Andrew Nembhard, and he showed exactly why today. Julian Strawther also had an extraordinary game. He finished with 20 points, 7 for 10 from the field, 3 for 5 from beyond the arc. He has always been a player who seems to have a really good first half or a really good second half. There have been a few games, certainly, where he's put together entire games, but this was definitely one of those games where he was electric in the first half. He really helped Gonzaga bounce back from a little bit of a slow start. Again, they went down 7-0. It happened pretty quickly. There wasn't a prolonged slump for the Zags. Again, there's very few games where you struggle for too long if you're going to drop 110 on a team. But he helped get them out of the funk. He had a couple little floaters early in the game, hit a 3 early on, really kind of bounced Gonzaga back from a bit of a slow start, and then just cooked for the rest of the half. Again, finished with 20 points. Really nice game from him. Drew a lot of praise from the announcers who really, really like his game. There was a lot of talk about him as a potential NBA player, how he didn't play much last year and kind of learned from Corey Kispert and Joel Ayayi and developed his game. And now you can see the fruits of that work that he put in last season. He's obviously an extraordinary player, looked excellent in this game. He's almost an afterthought. Again, we haven't even talked about Drew Timme and the extraordinary performance that he put on, but Strawther had a casual 20 points on 10 shots is normally what you lead off talking about when a player does that in a game. But Strawther was kind of the third, borderline fourth most notable individual performance for Gonzaga this year, and that speaks far less about Julian and just far more about how ridiculously loaded and talented this Gonzaga team is and how much they balled out on Thursday against BYU. All right, we got a lot more Gonzaga BYU talk in the second segment. We're going to go over my 5 things to watch. Before we get there, though, let's talk about Netsuite. This is it, the putt to win the tournament. If you sink it, the championship is yours. But on your backswing, your hat falls over your eyes. Is this how you're running your business? Poor visibility because you're still relying on spreadsheets and outdated finance software? To see the full picture, you need to upgrade to Netsuite by Oracle. Netsuite is the #1 cloud financial system out there to power your company's growth. With visibility and control of your finances, inventory, HR needs, planning, budgeting, and more, Netsuite is everything you need to grow as a company all in one convenient location. NetSuite lets you automate your processes and close your books in no time while keeping you ahead of your competition. Over 27,000 businesses already use NetSuite, and right now, through the end of the year, NetSuite is offering a one-of-a-kind financing program to those ready to upgrade at netsuite.com/lockedonncaa. Head to netsuite.com/lockedonncaa for special end-of-the-year financing on the #1 financial system for growing businesses. All right, segment 2, still Andy Patton, still Locked On Zags, and I'm happy to report we're still talking about the beatdown Gonzaga gave BYU on Thursday night on ESPN, 110 points against the top 20 ranked defense in the country. I labeled before the game on the most recent episode before this, I talked about 5 things that I'm going to be watching for this game, specific strategical things going into this game. Strategical, we're going to say that that's a word, right? These are the 5 things I labeled. We're going to talk about how they went in this game. Number 1, how does Gonzaga guard Alex Barcello? Well, the way that Gonzaga guarded Alex Barcello was they did what I'm going to call the Gary Bell, which for you, those of you who remember in the 2014 or 2015 NCAA tournament, Gonzaga was playing North Dakota State, in the NCAA tournament, and they had one really, really, really good guard on their roster, and Gary Bell spent the entire game just right in that dude's kitchen. He was right. He could smell everything that dude ate that day. He was right there. He was not playing help defense. He was not looking for anybody else. He was just right there. The proper term is face guarding, and that is how Gonzaga decided to guard Alex Barcello. It was mostly Rasir Bolton's assignment, and he was just right in his face all game long. Jay Billis brought it up about 5 or so minutes into the game. So for those people who hadn't quite noticed, that was kind of a good jumping off point, but he was just right. He wasn't playing help defense at all. He was just right there. Now, it didn't really work. Barcello scored 19. He had a really nice game. He scored 19 points on 7 for 14 shooting. He shot 4 for 6 from downtown. The dude is complete money when he shoots the ball. There was one possession where Bolton got tripped up on a screen, went down to the ground. Barcello had maybe a half a second of time to get off a clean look, and nothing but net. The dude is an incredible shooter, one of the best pure shooters that Gonzaga has ever faced, without question. He's a 50% three-point shooter. That is unreal. And you could see why Gonzaga went into this game thinking, we have to stop him. And the fact that they basically committed to playing no help defense with whoever's guarding Barcello and just shut him down completely. The fact that they felt Gonzaga doesn't do that to a lot of players. We've seen him do it periodically. But the fact that they felt that that was necessary in this game, and Barcello still turned around and scored 20 points on a team that scored 84, that just proves how talented of a player he is and how good he can be in that offense. Now, Gonzaga took care of business on the offensive end in an extraordinary way, to the point where it didn't matter at all. Barcello did most of his damage in the first half. He had 13 there, only 6 in the second half, but still a really nice game from him, and still proof that Gonzaga had to work really hard on the defensive end to try to slow him down, and still gave up nearly a 20 spot to him. Number 2 was, how does BYU react to the size disadvantage? And this was the telling point of the game. I talked about this ad nauseum before this week with BYU. Unfortunately, they suffered 2 serious injuries to their roster, and Gavin Baxter and Richard Harward. Missing those 2 guys for this game was really, really instrumental. Those 2 guys are big. They're beefy dudes. They handle the paint, and BYU's their interior post defense without those 2 guys has been bad all season long since Baxter has been out. And it was on full display in this game. They did not have even close to an answer for Drew Timme or Chet Holmgren. Drew Timme had the most efficient night of his career. He scored 30 points on 13 of 14 shooting. 14 field goal attempts, and he dropped 30. He only missed 1 shot. And folks, the shot that he missed, for those of you who do not remember, it was in the first half early. There was nearly a shot clock violation. Timme took a dribble, awkwardly pulled up and shot a 3. I've never seen Drew Timme take a 3 off a dribble before in my life. I don't think that he will ever do it again in a Gonzaga uniform, except in a very, very similar situation at the very end of a shot clock when they just need to get the ball towards the rim. That was his only miss. That was it. He missed 1 shot in the game. Every other shot that he took went in. He was an absolute menace in this game. Some of it was out in transition. Some of it was, of course, in the half court. We saw BYU. They let him get position. And then when he got the ball, we saw them send some double teams, as soon as he got the ball, which is what a lot of teams have been doing. But I'm still flabbergasted that teams let Drew Timme establish position down low, let him catch a pass within 2 feet of the basket. I do not know why teams are letting him do that. I know that there's not a lot of other options and that he's very difficult to stop, but it seems like that's a strategy that's going to work less than 5% of the time. In this case, Drew Timme, he did not miss a shot around the rim today at all. It worked very much less than 5% of the time. It does not work at all. So do not let Drew Timme get the ball under the basket. BYU did not heed that advice, and he torched them. Chet Holmgren is probably the player being talked about the least in terms of the big four for Gonzaga: Nembhard, Strawther, Timme, and now Holmgren. But Holmgren had a great game. He only had 12 points, but again, 5 for 7 from the field. So you can't really be too upset about that. He wasn't taking a lot of bad shots. Again, 7 field goal attempts, 12 points, 7 rebounds, 5 blocks. A remarkable game from Chet. Again, BYU was missing a lot of their bigs, so he was doing this against young, inexperienced bigs for BYU who kept taking shot attempts around him at the rim, which, as we know, does not work very well. It hasn't worked for really anybody this entire season. Probably wasn't going to work for these guys, as much as I think that BYU's young bigs are going to be pretty good in a couple of years. I was impressed by them. Didn't have a good game for them offensively tonight, as you would have potentially expected. So Timme and Holmgren combined 18 for 21 from the field in this one. Anton Watson was 4 for 5, so 22 for 26. I think you'll take that. That's pretty good for your big men right there. Again, BYU didn't have the personnel to really stop Gonzaga's bigs down low, and it showed in a significant way in this game. My third key: how does Gonzaga look beyond the arc? Pretty dang good. Pretty dang good. They got the crowd tacos in the first half. I do not remember this ever happening. I don't know if anybody looked it up. I apologize if it is out there, but as far as I know, this is the first time in my recorded memory that Gonzaga got the fans tacos for 10 3-pointers in the first half. Now, they finished with 11 because they just didn't take a lot of threes in the second half because they didn't need to. They were up big. BYU gave up on trying to stop Drew Timme, and they just did all of their scoring in the paint in the second half. But in the first half, when BYU was much more cognizant of trying to prevent Drew Timme or Chet Holmgren from catching the ball, Gonzaga just torched them from beyond the arc. I already mentioned Nembhard. He finished 4 for 6 from beyond the arc. Strawther finished 3 for 5. Chet, like I said, he had a great game. He was 2 for 3. Nolan Hickman was 1 for 1. Really outstanding shooting performance. The misses: Drew Timme missed 1, like we talked about already. Matthew Lang missed 1. Joe Few missed 1. That's it. And then Rasir Bolton went 1 for 3. A little bit of a struggle for him in this one, at least offensively. Although he had 7 assists, and he had the handled the responsibility of trying to guard Alex Barcello as best as possible. So Gonzaga clearly has taken my words saying that they're not a good 3-point shooting team to heart. They're setting out to prove me wrong. If that is the case, I hope they continue to do it. I hope we continue to see this team be successful as an outside shooting team. They went 11 for 21 in this game. A really, really sharp performance from them. That's 52%. They missed a few at the very end of the game, which, had they not missed those, they were closer to 60% from 3. An outstanding performance. I don't think BYU was guarding the perimeter very well at all in this game, but it's still very hard to shoot over 50% for a full game. So hats off to Gonzaga for being able to do that. Next up on my keys to watch was if there was going to be any jawing or any conversation with Caleb Lohner, of course, BYU's sophomore forward, who had comments before the game saying that everybody hates Gonzaga and that it's going to be really fun to play against them. I was hoping that there would be some good-natured ribbing from the Kennel Club and the fan base, and that did not disappoint at all. Lohner got booed every time he touched the basketball. They cheered when he missed. He shot pretty well early in the game. He actually didn't have that bad of a game in general. He finished with 17 points, second on the team for a guy who has not been shooting the ball well at all. 7 for 10 from the field, 2 for 3 from the free throw line, 5 boards and 2 assists, but he also had 4 turnovers. He also picked up 3 fouls, 2 of them very early, which caused him to have to sit for a large chunk of the first half, which also caused the crowd to chant, "We want Caleb," repeatedly at him throughout the game, or "Caleb sucks." We heard that one too. The Kennel Club was giving it to him all game long, justifiably so. Again, a nice night for him, a bad night for BYU. I can imagine that The comment about how fun this game was going to be was probably not as fun as he was hoping that it would be, but I'm sure he is ready for that game at the Marriott Center later in the season, and him and the crowd there are going to bring it, and that is what this kind of game should be about, and I'm all about it, and I'm excited. My final key was Caden Perry hopefully getting a chance to see him back on the floor after missing a few games with a back injury. We did not, unfortunately, in this game. I don't think he would have come in until about the 4-minute mark. That's when Ben Gregg checked into the game, was just above 5 minutes left. So we saw Ben Gregg again. We saw Matthew Lang, Joe Few, Will Graves. I suspect if Caden Perry were healthy enough to play, he would have played in those last few minutes. So the fact that he did not tells me that he's probably not quite ready to go. Maybe they're hoping to be able to get him a few minutes against Santa Clara on Saturday. Again, potentially Mark Few has talked or will talk about this at some point between now and the start of the Santa Clara game. I don't think it's a big deal that he didn't play in this game. I don't think it's some indication that he's more hurt than we thought, or that there's something, significantly wrong with him that could impact his health later on in the season. It probably just wasn't a game where they felt comfortable getting him in. Maybe he's not quite ready to go. Maybe they just were content to see Ben for a few minutes at the end of this game. We'll hopefully find out some more information, but no Perry for this game against BYU here. All right. 2 segments down. We're going to come back in the third segment. We're going to pivot away from talking about this BYU game. We're going to talk about Santa Clara, who the Zags have on Saturday, preview the Broncos to close out the week. Before we get there, though, let's talk about Get Upside. Hey, Zags fans, Andy Patton here with an incredible app everyone who buys gas needs to know about called Get Upside. My listeners are making up to 25 cents for every gallon of gas every time they fill up. Just download the free Get Upside app in the App Store or Google Play right now and use promo code SCORE, and you'll get a bonus 25 cents per gallon on your first fill up. That's up to 50 cents cash back. Don't pay full price at the pump anymore. Get cash back using Get Upside. Just download the app for free and use promo code SCORE to get up to 50 cents per gallon cash back on your first tank. Some people who drive a lot are making as much to $200 to $300 a month in cash back, and there's no catch. The cash back gets added right to your account. You can cash out anytime to your bank account, PayPal, or an e-gift card for Amazon and other brands. Just download the free Get Upside app and use promo code SCORE to get up to 50 cents per gallon cash back on your first tank. Today's episode is also brought to you by BetOnline. Folks, BetOnline is back and better than ever. BetOnline has a new web interface for the start of the NBA and college basketball season and features more props, odds, and lines than ever before. BetOnline remains your number one spot for all of the basketball and football action this season. Head to our new updated desktop or mobile website to sign up today and receive your 50% welcome bonus on your first deposit. Just use our promo code LOCKEDON to receive your bonus. From basketball, football, NHL, boxing, and UFC, right to your favorite Vegas casino games, don't wait to take advantage of all the amazing offers available for the 2021 season. BetOnline is the fastest and easiest way to bet on all of your favorite sports. All right, segment 3, still Andy Patton, still Locked On Zags, still talking Gonzaga hoops and previewing their next game in the WCC conference slate after the big win against BYU. The Zags have Santa Clara, the Broncos, on Saturday at 6 p.m. Look, here's the deal. Santa Clara is good. This is a good basketball team. Again, we've talked a lot about the WCC and how disrespected they have been in a lot of circles, and certainly how good this conference is this year. But it's not just Gonzaga and BYU and St. Mary's. It's not just those 3 teams and San Francisco. Those are definitely the 4 best teams in the conference. But there are 6 pretty good teams in the WCC this year, and 5 and 6 are Santa Clara and LMU. And Santa Clara, I think, has the best chance of really playing a significant spoiler this year. This is a team that's good enough to beat every other team in the WCC if things go their way. They're 11-5 on the year. KenPom heading into this game on Thursday night, so it may change over the next couple of days, but KenPom currently has this team 72nd in the country. This is a top 75 team in the nation. This team is better than the team that Auburn is playing on Saturday. They're playing Ole Miss. So when Auburn fans say they think they should be number 1 in the country because they played a tougher schedule, they did not. Santa Clara is a top 75 team in the country. According to KenPom's offensive ratings, this team is 46th. This is one of the 50 best offensive teams in the country. Defensively, they're 118th. So it's not like they're a slouch on that end of the floor either. Again, 11-5 on the year. Their biggest wins are over Stanford, Nevada, and Texas Christian, TCU. So no huge wins, but certainly not bad wins for this team. Their losses: Fresno State, Irvine, Cal, Boise State, and Louisiana Tech. So a couple losses in there that you don't love. Certainly you don't love the Louisiana Tech loss. You don't love the Fresno State loss. That's not a great Bulldogs team. Irvine is solid. Cal is okay. Boise State is a top 50 team in the country, so that's not necessarily a bad loss. The main thing about Santa Clara is these dudes can light it up. As a team, they are shooting 38% from three. That's 27th in the country. They are one of the top 30 best three-point shooting teams in the country right now. That is the recipe for how a team that is maybe not as good as the team they're playing can win. You can beat teams that are better than you if you shoot the crap out of the basketball from beyond the arc. This is how USF has historically pulled off a lot of significant upsets. It's how they beat Virginia last year as well. This is what these kinds of teams do. Santa Clara has the recipe for success. The key beyond the outside shooting is Jalen Williams. Jalen Williams is so freaking good. He's a WCC first team, no doubter. If Gonzaga wasn't in the conference, he would probably be the WCC player of the year. He's averaging 19 points, 4 boards, 3.5 assists per game. He's shooting 40% from three. This dude can do a little bit of everything. When the Zags play them on Saturday, he will stand out to you on the court. You will notice him because he is that good. Beyond him, they have Keyshawn Justice, who is in his, I believe, 4th season with Santa Clara. He's always been a high-volume three-point shooter, but this year he cannot miss. He is shooting 44% on threes, and he's attempting over 6 per game. This dude can absolutely light it up. So if him and Williams are both hitting their outside shots, you can see how Santa Clara is going to give some teams some trouble this year. Beyond those two guys, the biggest and huge key for them is they got back Josip Vrankic. He missed a big chunk of the season with mono. He's only played 8 games this year, but he is averaging 15.6 boards and 4 assists in that time period. They also got PJ Pipes, a grad transfer guard. He missed I think he missed 3 or 4 games with an undisclosed illness. It was not COVID related, but he was out for over a month. Of course, Santa Clara only played a couple of games in that month time because of COVID-19 ravaging every other team in the WCC. But Pipes, he's their point guard. He's their facilitator. He's averaging 10.5 points and just under 4 assists per game. He's not a great three-point shooter, so he's not going to kill you from beyond the arc the way the rest of the backcourt in Justice and Williams is going to, but he's still the kind of guy who's going to facilitate. He's going to cause some problems for Gonzaga defensively. And with him and Vrankic both healthy, this is a team that's probably peaking right now or is about to hit their peak. I don't think that they're a serious threat to beat Gonzaga just because they don't have a lot of depth. They don't have a ton of size in the front court, which seems to be giving a lot of teams trouble with, of course, the combo of Chet Holmgren and Drew Timme and Anton Watson, frankly. But I think this is a Santa Clara team that's going to do some damage. The other thing I wanted to mention when I was looking at their roster, Jaden Bediako is a third-year backup center for Santa Clara. He was actually an all-freshman WCC member as a freshman a couple of years ago. But the reason that name jumped out to me is because Charles Bediako, who plays for Alabama, who gave Gonzaga a lot of fits as a true freshman. And I thought, I wonder if they're related. And of course, they are. So Jaden Bediako, who plays for Santa Clara, his younger brother Charles is the starting center for Alabama. So the Bediako family is going to see a lot of the Zags this year. I suspect that Charles is the only one who's going to get a victory over Gonzaga this year. So a conversation they can have over Thanksgiving dinner sometime in the future. But Jaden is a guy who he's going to play. You're going to see him on the floor. But I don't think he's going to have quite as big of an impact as Charles did for Alabama in that game. All right, that is going to do it for me today. Super fun night of Gonzaga hoops. Super fun interacting with all of you on social media. Super excited for next week when we get Mailbag Monday. Should be a really fun one after this game and hopefully a nice victory over Santa Clara as well. Of course, all right here on the Locked On Zags podcast, which is available wherever you get your podcasts and available on YouTube. If you have not headed to the YouTube channel, just search Locked On Zags on YouTube. Hit that subscribe button. I sincerely appreciate it. Finally, thank you again to those of you who make this show your first listen of the day. Now is a great time to make your second listen of the day, the Locked On Bets podcast. Locked On Bets is your daily one-stop shop for all of your gambling needs. Locked On Bets is hosted by your boy Q with expert analysis and insight from Lee Sterling. All right, thank you all for listening, and go Zags.